And so, what was the aftermath of my wife smashing the toilet, falling down drunk, destroying the toilet in our hotel room, flooding out the room? And okay, so the next day, again, I called her up and she didn't realize what had happened. She didn't understand why the toilet was broken. And she came to our room because the hotel had given us a second room. And my wife actually thought she had abandoned us. If you need to see the first half, I just did it earlier today. And then so I was very happy to get out of that hotel. We kind of tiptoed quietly out the back door, and just I had to get out of there. I felt very uncomfortable. I mean, we had destroyed a room, and later that cost me about $1,200. Unfortunately, they charged me for the room plus a $200 deposit. So staying there, cost me in the neighborhood of about $1,500, and we were only there from 4 in the afternoon till about 7:30, 8 o'clock the next morning, and that was with one day on a vacation with my wife. And really, the horror story continued on to the next day because my son and I we wanted to go to the Smithsonian, which was a very famous place in Washington D.C. It's a very famous museum. Obviously, I mean they have dinosaurs and all kinds of stuff. So we wanted to go there, and we parked in front of the Smithsonian. And my wife didn't want to go in for various reasons. I think she was just hungover. Plus, she probably would have slowed us down because her knees weren't doing very good at the time. They're starting to wear out. So my son and I went inside. We spent about an hour and a half in there. I ended up calling my wife a couple of times, trying to get a hold of her just so that to check in with her because I mean I don't know what kind of damage she could do even in front of the Smithsonian. I mean I just didn't really trust the situation. And after about an hour and a half, I didn't get an answer. Wasn't answering the phone. So my son, I go, look, we got to go back. We got to go check on your mother. And as frustrating as that was, because we were having a good time inside. So we went down the sidewalk, and for some reason, I mean, her legs were sticking out the passenger side of the car, and we're like, what is going on? I mean, so we walk up to the car, and she's passed out in the front seat. Completely passed out. There's an empty bottle of red wine, I mean, one of those big 1.75 liter, almost 2 liters of wine she had consumed in that hour and a half. And we're like, where did you get it? I mean, she didn't even have money. I don't know where she got it. So as I was trying to get her into the car, get her feet back through the window, and at least get her sat upright, my son went around to the trunk and he looked in to get something out of his luggage, and he noticed his mother's luggage was wide open, and there was two additional giant bottles of red wine sitting in her luggage. And somehow during the trip, or even before we went there, she must have, hidden a bunch of wine bottles in her luggage, which is just crazy. And that was the end of the Smithsonian, and I realized at that point we just needed to get out of town. I think I'd had enough of Washington D.C. at that point. We'd been there a day and a half, and it had been one terrorizing moment after another. And by now it was still middle of the afternoon, and I said, heck, let's just go back to Gettysburg, and maybe we'll stay there the night. We just need to get out of town. I was just feeling uncomfortable in Washington. DC. So we drove back, and Amanda was completely passed out. I mean, her head was on the window, and she was wobbling, and again, for whatever reason, she just could not hold her water, and she just was peeing all over everything, which I know is a little terribly disgusting, but it's a big part of the details that you go through. And my son and I, we had to sit there and smell it the whole way. I mean, it had the windows down. It was just, this is a rental car too, just another thing to add to it. But at one point when we were driving into Washington D.C., I pulled over, and I was, we're trying to have a conversation with Amanda, like, why are you drinking? Why can't you just stop drinking? And she goes, I don't want to stop drinking. I just don't want to stop. And I said, well, I can't, we can't take it anymore. Why don't you get out of the car for a little while? I think Griffin and I need a break. And she got out of the car, and we were in like this, in front of this historical building in the fields outside of Gettysburg, and she went over near the barn and sat down. And to be honest with you, my son and I, we took off into the town. I just needed a break from her. I just could not be in the same car with her. And so, to make a long story short, I ended up getting a hotel room in Gettysburg. We brought the luggage in there, and Amanda's 2 bottles of wine I just left on the on the nightstand next to her bed. I went back and got her. She was freaking out. She thought we abandoned her, but we needed a break for about an hour We went back and got her, brought her back to the hotel room, and I said, "There's 2 bottles of wine. You can just go. You can drink yourself into oblivion tonight. Your son and I are going to go into town, and we're going to go. There was a ghost tour we wanted to go on to, and we wanted to go to some shops, and we're going to go do our own thing. You go do yours." And unfortunately, it's just how it went for the rest of the vacation. And again, I tell these stories really to resonate with other families and with other alcoholics, because I mean these situations happened years ago. I mean, this was almost 8 or 9 years ago. This is 9 years ago we're talking about. But I tell these stories so that it will resonate with other families, because I know so many people go through this kind of thing. And my channel is really designed for educational purposes. They're not designed to disparage my wife. That's long past, because she passed 4.5 years ago. And again, I just want to point out, I go live Monday through Friday right around 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. The Facebook group you can join in the link tree. It's called There's an Alcoholic in the Family. And when you're ready to work with me one-on-one, the coaching program link is in the bio, again, to set up a breakthrough call. It takes about 45 minutes. We do a deep dive into what's going on with you and your family, and we set up a program, for sustainable sobriety. We set up a blueprint for you and your family. I'm looking for people who want to change their lives forever. And again, thanks for listening.